Well, I don't know if this will be the Thanksgiving video. I already made one, so if I post it, I didn't want to deal with too many issues on Thanksgiving. This morning I made a Thanksgiving video. Look what I got on. Wizard of Oz. And I explained a lot on today. It's going to be a teaching video, so that's why you don't get it on Thanksgiving. Maybe you'll get this. I didn't want to do any issues. I might wait and just post this tomorrow, and then the next day you'll get the one I made for today. I do want to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving if you see this today. I just want to make this because it's hard to write on all of the news articles and everything. This one is the Afghan hospital attack draws suspensions. I was waiting to see, this is the hospital that the U.S. military bombed in Afghanistan a month or so ago, and I've talked about that. I was waiting to see. I wrote on it and talked about it. What I think happened, from some of you that watched the other videos, what I think happened was they were going to call it human error. That's what I thought they were going to say. I think what happened was, in the heat of that fight that was going on in the city of Kunduz, the Afghan troops that are on the ground, which coordinate, we're like the air power for the Afghan troops on the ground, okay? And there was claims on the first day that Taliban fighters went into that Afghan hospital and were shooting at the Afghan troops, who are our troops that are fighting, and that a decision was made, this is what I understood, to go ahead and hit the hospital. Now, we normally do not do that. There are other places in Yemen and other places that's going on. Opposing forces do hit hospitals, because if you hit a hospital, you take out all of the wounded people in that hospital. Now, we, the U.S., never do that. And if we did, it would be such an outrage. And, so I was wondering, they're going to come out with a report. Let's see what the U.S. military says. I read this report. I don't believe it. Say, John, do we lie? We lie all the time. We lie all the time. I could give you many cases. But this Afghan hospital, I just read it. I wanted you to see the headline of that. It basically says this. The plane that bombed it, and I even saw a news clip the other day. They said if you heard the recordings of the pilots or the people in that plane, our U.S. plane that bombed that hospital, they said it would be damning, and they are not releasing the recording. Now, here's what our investigation said. We had a report about another building that was firing upon troops. Why do I think this is not true? Because the first day when I heard it on the news, the Afghan hospital staff were upset, and they said some Taliban fighter did come into the hospital, and some were in our compound, and the Afghan troops claimed that they were firing from the hospital, and the staff in the hospital staff says no, they weren't firing. So that shows me that right from the start, it wasn't a question of whether it was a wrong building. Do you understand? It was a question of whether or not you should hit a hospital. Now, this report that came out by our U.S. military, and when it first came out, before I actually read it, today is Sunday, Thanksgiving, it said human error. And I was waiting to see. Before it came out yesterday, I heard human error. I thought they might have said, we will not ever admit if a decision was made in that chain of command to hit that hospital. We would never admit that. This report said there was a report of another building not too far from the hospital that Taliban were firing from. No. And that other building, the coordinates, when it was given to our fighter pilots, it was an open field. So the coordinates were wrong. And what our men in the plane decided was, let's just see any other building that's close to the one that is supposed to be in the open field. And that they made a decision, maybe it's that building, which is the hospital. And then as they fired on that building, that's the mistake they're saying was made. And then they also said in this report, the general or whoever gave it, he said, but it's up to what type of discipline will happen or whatever. And they basically said, it's independent and we keep that, like secret. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. According to the military's investigation, gunship had sought to attack a building suspected of being. I don't believe that. The other thing I wanted you to see was media bias. Okay, I'm sorry it's Thanksgiving, and I'm sorry if I post this today. The nice one will be, I made it earlier. Outlook brightens as jobs fill the nation. That's Associated Press. That is such a lie. That is such a lie. We had good jobs numbers, I'll give you that, in October. Do you know there's 94 million people not working in the United States of America? Do you know that is not just the highest number of non-working people in the history of the United States of America? It is the highest percentage. Okay? See, sometimes you can say, yes, but in the beginning, in the founding of the country and so forth, the numbers, obviously, the population was low. I have not looked at this statistic in many years. I think there's about 360 million people in the United States of America. I believe that's about the population. 94 million, we passed the number a month or so ago, maybe a month ago, which is the highest percentage, not just the highest actual real raw number, but the highest percentage of non-working people is now, because 94 million out of 360 million, what is that? Almost a third? Well, and the same report, when I read in the paper that in the same report it said, but unemployment keeps miraculously dropping. It would be like if we were in a war and we had 100,000 men killed in a war. And then each month, another 5,000 were being killed. But as the war, as we were given statistics, as an example, the statistics started saying we have the lowest amount of people ever killed in any war. Wait a minute, but the 100,000 and the 5,000 every few months, and then you found out that the way we figured the statistics of those killed was not actually those killed. But when you were dead for more than 2 months, we no longer counted you as dead. That's what we do with the number of unemployment in this country. The head guy of the Gallup poll a year and a half ago, he realized that's what we do. And he came out publicly and said, you have changed it. In this country, we do not count you unemployed if you've been looking for a job for years and you gave up. You killed yourself. You gave up. To kill yourself, yes, they don't count you if you're dead. But if you just quit looking because it was impossible to get a job, you are no longer counted as unemployed. That's how we figure unemployment. So that heading, as jobs fill the nation, is a disgrace. And for those of you who are familiar with media bias, it's also a scandal that they would treat the American public that way. Now I'm going to give you one. I can't read it. I just wanted you to at least see it. This is Sunday's paper. Russia, the other thing is most analysts, because Turkey shot down a Russian plane. And as I read the story about this, Russia is asking, it was an American plane. These are planes fighter planes that we supply Turkey. But when the American plane, which I'm assuming is Turkish pilots. I don't think anybody's doubting that. But when it shut it down, an interesting thing, I read what Putin says, the leader of Russia. He said the question they have as they investigate is Putin said before an American plane can actually shoot down, even if it's flown by Turkish pilots, that normally there's a process where the U.S. has to give permission, like if we sell arms to a country or whatever. He's saying he wants to know if the U.S. gave permission to shoot down his plane. Second, Russia, most analysts, it says, are saying Russia's not going to retaliate. I'm going to give you a prophecy. That right now, the reason Turkey shot down that plane is there's a lot of politics going on right there, and I posted some posts the other day on this. But Turkey supports certain rebel groups, and some are Turkish, Turkmen they call them. Now, some of these groups are just there to destabilize for Turkey's purposes, okay? Some countries want to get rid of Assad, some do not. Okay, Russia says, no, we want Assad to stay. Some analysts in this country, some Democrats the last few months, have said Assad needs to stay. Okay, so there's a debate but Turkey doesn't want him to stay. So they have their own little revolutionary people that, quote, are the rebels who we support. Well, Russia's been bombing them and admitting it. They said, look, we're attacking all groups, not just ISIS, all terrorist groups. And so Putin's justified in his view. Now, Turkey made the decision to shoot down a Russian jet, and I found it interesting because as soon as they shot it down, they ran to NATO and said, you got to protect us. And there were statements from the head of NATO that said, we will consider it a war, if we will protect. And Putin even made a statement, I read in the paper just now. He said, it's funny, Turkey is acting like Russia shot down their fighter jet. They shot down a Russian jet and then ran to NATO and said, don't forget, you're going to protect us. That's the problem with the U.S. when we wooed Turkey into NATO. We did it thinking, well, we'll get some other countries that are actually not legitimately should be in NATO. Okay? NATO was never intended for that. After World War II, NATO simply was, if we ever see a threat, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, these countries were united. But to open it up like that, which we did a few years back to Turkey and others, was it made no sense. And this is exactly what didn't make sense, because if you have a country like Turkey, I forget how you say his name, Erdogan or whatever, the leader of Turkey, that guy is no lover of democracy or of freedom. He's no one to be our country and NATO saying we will back you to the hilt, especially if you, Turkey, decided because of your own political machinations, which you are because you benefit, there's certain reasons you want those rebels to stay, and you decided you were going to shoot down, the reason they shot it down is because Russia's jets, fighter pilots, they've been bombing the heck out of those Turkish rebels that Turkey supports. And they've been bombing them. And so the first response Russia gave after their jet was shot down was they went in and really bombed them. Now they're moving surface-to-air, long-range rockets. Most analysts right now are saying, we don't believe Russia's going to do anything, but it might hurt relations. Look, a lot has happened already. They've done a lot right now. But I believe they are going to shoot down a Turkish jet. I don't think Russia's going to let that slide. And if they shoot down the jet, Turkey and NATO right now are making it sound like if you dare shoot down one of our jets. Look, Turkey shot down that jet, and it was in Syria. And they're tricky because they initially said they gave them 10 warnings. Look, they might have gave them 10 warnings, but Turkey didn't publicly say they were all given while the Russian jet was in Turkish territory. They're smart. They're manipulative. They said, we gave them 10. There was a decision made, go ahead and shoot it. And Putin believes that the U.S. kind of thought, take it down. Russia's threatening us in many ways. And it's very possible in the biggest thing that we permitted that. And we might have permitted that because in a way we look very bad in the way Russia has come into Syria and is kind of doing more of a job than we've been doing. And some of the things they've done, they've kind of let it be known, if we clash with you, U.S., we will clash. It's real questionable whether we would have preferred Turkey to shoot it down. And Putin's smart, so instead of him jumping the gun and saying we're going to attack Turkey, because that's an act of war. Unless you shot it down over Turkey, it's an act of war. You shut down. But right now, Putin has permission to be in Syria, and Turkey does not. And Assad is still the leader of Syria, and he's working the way international law works. He was invited in. The U.S. was not, and these other nations that are in there. Turkey has no right to have rebels inside Syria, and it's been there for a long time. There's a dispute on that region, Latvia, or whatever it's called. Latvia, I forget. So I wanted you to just see. I'm sorry if you guys get this today. I did a nice Thanksgiving one, but I got to add some verses to that. And I just want you to see. The Chicago shootings, which I posted, I was debating posting them today, but I was online working on the other teaching posts. The videos that are coming out from I said something nice on the other video about the police, okay? But in this right now, I'm just doing the news update. And on that, the videos that are coming out from that killing of Officer Van Dyke, shot that black kid, it was over a year ago. And the videos that are coming out, none of them have any sound to those videos. The cops are saying, we don't know why. When you read the story, that Officer Van Dyke, who had many complaints against him, he was in a rage when he shot that kid because he unloaded his weapon. I think it was a 9mm, 16 shots. And the other cops had to stop him at the scene because he was reloading. 16 were not going to be it. And it's real possible that on the audio, which you're not hearing, that they were saying, stop, stop. And you probably would have heard audio of that Officer Van Dyke in a rage. In a rage. So all the video now that's being released is silent. Okay? That's a little bit of a scandal going on. If y'all get this today, like I said, it's just because I did a quick, brief update. And I wanted you to see some of those things. That's the other prophecy. Russia's going to, I'm sure they're going to retaliate. Now, whether they hit an air base in Turkey or whether they take down a Turkish jet. This report that we came out with on our bombing of the hospital in Kunduz, I do not believe that's true. I do not believe that's true. And they also said in that report, the pilots in those planes are planes that are flying over Afghanistan. Of course, we have equipment that tells you and what you're shooting. You know, what are the coordinates of the thing you're targeting. And in this report, it said it was not functioning. That equipment on the plane was not functioning, and they don't know why. In all of the things that we do, you saw manipulation in Jobs Fill the Nation. You saw manipulation in these things. All that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. There are many reasons why we manipulate, and some people justify that. I told you it was the philosophy of pragmatism. Some people say the ends justify the means. And so what you see, though, the question is, what are your ends? You see, we might think it's good to keep people calm. In Chicago, they were not going to indict that officer. How do you know? Because that officer shot that black teenager over a year ago. And they could not get video, and finally, through a Freedom of Information request, a judge said, you got to release the video. And 2 hours before they released the video, then the prosecutor there for that Chicago district put the indictment out. You see? They waited. and they knew the video was going to be released. And they're claiming it had nothing to do with the timing of the release of the video. So we often manipulate, and we do it for all types of reasons. So I'm sorry that Wizard of Oz, I mentioned this on the other video. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody. This is not a teaching video. I did quote it. I'll quote it again. Let us therefore be grateful, because we're receiving a kingdom which cannot be shaken. And I do want to be grateful on Thanksgiving, and I want all of our friends and community. Today is a day of thanks, okay? Let me pray. Father, I thank you for all of our friends. I pray that you bless them today. We're grateful for every good and perfect gift that comes down from, the Bible says in James, from the Father of lights. And you've given us many good things, and today we thank you for all the blessings. And I bless all of our friends in Jesus' name. Amen.